On February 18th, 2 months before my 51st birthday, the unimaginable happened. I had a heart attack. I was on the pool deck drinking a Corona and waiting for the coals in my smoker to heat up. At first, I thought that the last sip of beer had gone down the wrong throat, but as it got worse, I realized that something was very wrong. The pain was unbearable and quickly intensified. It felt like someone was standing on my chest, and I felt and even heard my heart beating uncontrollably. I fell to my knees and then onto my back, gasping for breath. Thank God for cell phones because they were the only thing that saved my life. I reached into my shorts, took out my phone, and dialed 911. I don't remember if I said help or anything. Just a few minutes later, there was a loud crash, and there were a lot of people around me doing something to me. I must have blacked out because the next thing I remember was being told I was being prepped for surgery. "Mr. Moore, can you hear me?" asked the voice. "We need to give you a heart bypass immediately. Do you understand?" I nodded that I understood. They placed a clipboard under my arm, and I signed some kind of consent, or maybe it was an order for Girl Scout cookies. I had no idea and didn't care. I just wanted the pain to stop. "Does anyone need to be notified?" asked the nurse. My wife. My wife. "Is she here?" I asked. "No. You were alone in the house when the paramedics arrived. I'll have someone check it out as soon as possible," she told me. "Now try to relax. We're heading to the operating room, and you should be fine." At this stage, I seemed to be vaguely aware of what was going on, but nothing really registered in my brain as I was wheeled into an elevator and then into a large, bright room. "Breathe deeply, and when you wake up, everything will be behind you," the doctor told me. My life did not flash before my eyes. I didn't have any out-of-body experience, and, thank God, I didn't see any bright light at the end of the tunnel. I just woke up in the recovery room with a middle-aged nurse standing over me taking my pulse. "How are you feeling?" I tried to say something, but my mouth was too dry. Although my mind was working, my body was not doing what I wanted. "Don't worry, you'll feel much better in a couple of hours. Just sleep." She was right. The next time I woke up, I felt much better, although worse at the same time. Sitting next to my bed was my wife, Sandy, to whom I had been married for 28 years. "Are you okay?" When I got home, the neighbors told me what happened. "The doctors said you'll be fine," she said, smiling. My mouth was still very dry, and when I tried to say something, it barely came out. "Leave me alone," I started to say, but it came out quieter than a whisper. "What are you trying to say?" Sandy said as she moved closer to my mouth. "Get out of my sight and leave me alone," I said loud enough for her to hear. "Honey, don't try to talk. Just lie down and rest. I'll be here," she said, touching my cheek. At this point, my heart rate increased, my face turned red, and a nurse ran into my room to see what was happening. "Leave me alone," I was now yelling at her. "Miss, you will have to leave. You are upsetting the patient and increasing his vital signs. Please leave, miss," she told Sandy. "But I'm his wife," she muttered. "However, you are upsetting him, and I ask you to leave immediately." "Honey, I'll be in the hallway if you need me," she said, looking back at me as she was led out of the room. I signaled to the nurse, and she came closer. "No visitors, please," I told her, "and discuss my condition only with me. No one else." "I understand, Mr. Moore. I will put a sign on your door that no visitors are allowed, and I will make sure that the doctor discusses your condition only with you. Do you need anything?" she asked. I nodded negatively. "Well, in that case, try to relax and get some sleep. The doctor will come later to check on your condition. You can't rest in the hospital. If they don't inject you, they take your blood or try to give you some damn pill in the middle of the night." A dream, yes, of course, lady, I thought to myself. The doctor came and said everything went according to plan. They did a triple bypass, and when they came in, they saw signs of other damage, as they call it, from an earlier attack. I told him it probably happened about 3 months ago, but I thought it was just a stress attack. "You're very lucky, Mr. Pierce Moore. If you didn't have a cell phone, you might not have survived," he explained. You really need to control your weight and blood pressure, otherwise you'll end up with me again, he said, looking at my chart. I want you to get out of bed tomorrow morning. I want you to start walking for at least 10 minutes every hour, and after that we'll see how things go. How long will I lie down, doctor? If you're asking me when you can go back to work, it's at least 2 months from now. When you get home, you'll need someone with you at all times, at least for the first couple of weeks. After that, we'll take action. Depending on the circumstances, depending on how you feel. Doc, I won't be recovering at home, so can you recommend a good facility? Well, there's a pretty good place about 3 miles from here that has a great gym area and a nutritionist on staff, he told me. You just need our business office to call and arrange it for you. Let me warn you, it is quite expensive, but it has an excellent reputation. By the way, you had a lot of visitors, and some of them became a little irritable when they were told that you requested no visitors or calls, he said with a bewildered smile. I guess you had your reasons, but I wouldn't want to be in your shoes when you get home, he said as he walked out the door. Who said I was going home, I thought. A week later, I was sitting in a private room at a rehab center. It overlooked a pond outside and looked more like a hotel room than a hospital ward. I was given a full medical examination and asked how long I planned to stay. Let's plan for 2 months and see from there, I told the coordinator. Mr. Bolsity Wilson, you are about 65 pounds over your ideal weight, and you are not in the best physical shape. We need to get you into the gym and set you up with an exercise routine. But first of all, we are going to put you on a good nutrition program to get your weight back to normal. It won't be easy, but if you follow the staff's instructions, you'll see results. So with that said, I'll take you to the gym so you can get started. Well, you have me for the next 2 months, so do with me what you want, I said with a laugh as we began to develop a recovery program. You're probably wondering how I got myself into this state. The reason is simple. I'm too good at my job. I'm not bragging or saying this to boost my ego. It is a fact. I have a certain talent for finding the best people for jobs, providing them with full training, and finally letting them do what I hired them to do. I realized a long time ago that I can't do everything myself. I tried for a while, but it almost killed me. Now I sit back and let others do their work. I give them a project, tell them what results the client wants, and then let them go to do what they do best. Life is good now. You see, I'm a sales manager at a marketing firm. I've been with the company for 26 years, and a couple of years ago, I became a silent partner. No one, and I mean no one, including my wife, knows this. 5 years ago, I cut my salary by 25% to buy a stake in the company. I still have 5 years left, and I'll be a 50% owner with my buddy Ken. Does it sound like I have everything under control? Well, in business, yes, but in personal life, no. I have 2 spoiled children and a wife who strives to climb the social ladder. The youngest, John, struggled through college and was very upset when I didn't offer him a position in the company. I just told him that family and business don't mix. Between you and me, I didn't want to be the one to fire his lazy ass when he couldn't handle it. He found a good girl and got married, but still asks me for money about every month. I don't think I ever learned how to say no to him, but I never will again. Tina, who is 2 years older than John, is a professional student. She appears to be on a 6-year plan to complete her degree. She changed her major 3 times, and I have no idea what she is now, but whatever. At the beginning of this school year, I told her that she had 1 semester left to complete, and after that she would be on her own. She went to her mother and complained, and when Sandy came to me, I just told her that enough is enough. You probably understand what I'm getting at. I'm tired of being the good guy with an open wallet. At 25 and 27, I don't have to support them anymore, and I don't intend to. They are officially removed from my security. As for my wife, Sandy, it's a completely different story. About 3 months ago, I felt a little horny one night. Our sex life had deteriorated significantly over the past year, and I was trying to revive it. I don't expect sex 5 times a week, but 3 times would be nice. Well, where was I? Oh yeah, after dinner I gave her a glass of wine and asked if she was in the mood. For what? You know, how about we go upstairs and have some fun, I said with my sexiest smile. I'm a little tired today, and I have a party to plan, was her response. Come on, honey. I'm not asking for a kidney, just a little love. I should have known that things weren't going to go as I planned because Sandy looked as interested as someone sitting in a dentist's chair waiting for a tooth to be extracted. We undressed, went to bed, and that's when the complaints began. I was taking up too much space, she was hot, I was sweating, and finally she didn't want me to lie on her because I had gained too much weight. Okay, just forget about it, I said, getting out of bed and heading to the bathroom. Where are you going? I'll treat myself alone so I don't have to hear you complain about how unpleasant it is to have sex with me, I said, slamming the door. I took matters into my own hands, so to speak, and when I was done, I went to our guest bedroom. Now, where are you going? She called. Away from you before I say anything I regret, I replied, slamming the door. She was right. I've gained a lot of weight over the last couple of years. I probably should have taken better care of myself, but I became lazy. I started playing golf, but it was more to attract new business. I didn't really like it, and I was bad at it. The only good thing that came out of joining the club was that they always had events going on. The next morning, I was gone long before Sandy woke up. I was still angry, but I calmed down a little. I guess it's not all her fault, I said to myself as I sat at my desk, eating a donut and washing it down with a second glass of coffee. It was around 10 or so when I received an email from Sandy at work. There was no sorry or I love you, just that she wasn't in the mood last night, and instead of talking to her about it, I just walked away in a huff. I put down the coffee and tried to remember the last time we had a good lovemaking session. It's been a quick session lately. It really got bad, and it seemed like Sandy would rather go without sex than do it with me. That's when I had an epiphany. Maybe she's getting her needs met somewhere else. That's when I decided to click on the question and see what happened. What the hell will she do? Stop sleeping with me. I responded with the following email. Whatever you are doing, with whomever you are doing, you better stop right now if you want to stay married to me. When I hit the send button, I knew I would get some kind of reaction, but I thought it would at least wait until I got home. Sandy sent an angry email and attacked me for accusing her of cheating. She said that the problem in our sex life was not her, but me. And since I'm out of breath just walking up 2 floors, what kind of sex life do I expect? Maybe she should put an oxygen tank next to the bed for those nights when I want sex, and these were some of the nicer comments she wrote. Her last comment was that maybe I should move into the guest room permanently so she wouldn't be responsible for my heart attack. My answer was short and to the point. So be it. I didn't come home for dinner that night. I ate with my partner Ken. I considered not returning home at all, but decided that would complicate the situation even more. Sandy was waiting for me when I walked through the door. How dare you? How dare you accuse me of treason? She screamed. I have never been unfaithful in all the years of our marriage. Well, I figured if you're not getting it from me anymore, you must be getting it somewhere else, I said, not backing down. So if you don't mind, I'm tired, and since all you're going to do is yell at me, I'd better go to bed, I told her. I assume you won't sleep in our bedroom anymore, she asked sarcastically. What's the point? You don't want me there anymore, and I don't go where I'm not wanted, I said, walking up the stairs. Sleep alone. I don't care, Sandy said, screaming as I walked up the stairs. That's when my chest first started hurting. Every step was painful, but I had no intention of stopping. I barely made it to the top landing before I had to lean against the wall or fall. One of two things. I got to the guest room, fell on the bed with my clothes on, and passed out. When I finally woke up and looked at the clock, it was already 2:30 in the morning. I can't let her influence me like this, I told myself as I headed to the bathroom. After splashing water on my face, I looked in the mirror and didn't like myself. I need to get ready, I told myself, taking off my clothes, which were all wet with sweat. The next morning, I slept until almost 9 o'clock. The house was quiet. Sandy had already left, so I called work and told her I was taking the day off. Instead of relaxing at home, I went to my doctor. "You need to lose at least 50 pounds, he told me, "and your blood pressure is through the roof. I'll give you medication to bring it down, but if you don't take better care of yourself, you're asking for trouble," he warned. I've heard it all before, at least for the last 2 years. I tried to go on a diet. It's just not something I like doing, so I didn't do it. I told him I would try to lose weight and take medication. He scheduled a follow-up appointment for me in 3 months, and I left with a calorie chart and 2 diets to try. I threw them in the back seat of the car. The environment at home became cold at best. We no longer ate together and only talked when absolutely necessary. We only started talking to each other again after 2 months. There was no apology. We only talked about superficial things or about children. On Saturday, there was the annual charity auction at the club. "Steve, are you going?" Sandy asked. "Yes, I'm coming," I replied. "Well, we could go together. Is your tux ironed?" she asked. "Cleaned, ironed, and ready." It was quiet on the way to the club. We talked about nothing important until I took the initiative. "Sorry," I said, continuing to drive without looking at her. "Me too," Sandy replied. "I missed you and I don't want to fight anymore." This was the end of our time as I arrived at the club. I gave my keys to the doorman and he gave me a ticket to get the car. I walked around the car, opened the door for Sandy, and offered her my hand. She took it, smiled, and my heart skipped a beat. We entered the dining room and found our table. Dinner was ordinary, but the wine was much better. I ordered 4 bottles for our table, and together with the other 3 couples, we toasted our health. After dinner, the music started and people started dancing. I did one slow dance with Sandy, and that was more than enough for me. She asked if I would mind if she danced with a few other men. "No problem," I told her. I was walking around the room talking to a few friends when I saw Sandy on the dance floor. It was a slow dance, and I didn't recognize the man she was dancing with. His hand initially rested on her waist, but gradually moved downward. After a couple of dances, his hand was already on the center of her buttocks. After 2 dances, everything was repeated, and they went out onto the moonlit terrace. I followed them, staying out of sight. They were too far away for me to hear what they were saying, but their body language spoke for itself. When he leaned down and kissed her, I had enough. "Aren't you going to stay for the auction?" asked the doorman. "There's nothing else I want inside," I replied, getting into the car and driving away. About 20 minutes later, my cell phone rang Guess Who. I turned it off and put it on the seat next to me. I was home about 2 hours when Sandy burst inside. "What's your problem? Why did you just walk away leaving me?" she screamed. "I thought you two wanted some alone time," I replied. "What are you talking about, Steve?" "Dark-haired man, terrace, kiss. I saw everything," I told her. "It was nothing," she replied. "Nothing? You're saying that kissing another man is nothing? Well, I think differently, Sandy. And I guess you now let men grope you on the dance floor. Me and everyone else saw your performance," I told her. "Or am I making it up, Sandy?" "That's not what it looked like, Steve. I probably should have asked Rick to take his hand away, but it was just innocent flirting," she told me. "And the kiss was just a thank you for the dance. I left to look for you right after that. And it took 2 hours to get home. Since you weren't answering your phone, I needed to find someone to give me a ride home. Let me guess, Rick just volunteered to take you home. Am I right?" "Yes, it was Rick, and no, nothing happened," she tried to convince me as I started to walk away. "Damn it, nothing happened, Steve," she repeated. "How long does this last?" I asked. "How long does it take?" "How long ago did you give up on us?" I said as I headed to my new and permanent room. "Damn it, Steve, I didn't do anything," she screamed, starting to cry. "I think it was shortly after I gave up on myself," was my last comment as I closed and locked the bedroom door. I didn't leave my bedroom on Sunday. I slept and thought a lot about how my life had turned out. I have 2 useless children whom I can't hear unless they want something, and a wife with whom I essentially just cohabitate. Something like a sister. I needed to leave for a few days. Our lake cottage was about an hour away from home. It was my parents' house, and when they left, I bought my brother's share and remodeled the interior. On Monday, I packed a few things and headed there. A quick call to work, and I was free for the next 4 days. I just needed time alone to figure out some things without Sandy hovering over me. As soon as I opened the door, I realized something was wrong. I hadn't been here for at least 4 months, and the place was spotless when I left. Someone has been here since then. There was an empty bottle of wine on the table, and after a quick check, I discovered that our bed had been used. Not just used, someone had sex on the bed. I could still see the wet stain on the white sheets. Well, now I know where, and I have a good guess who, I said to myself, dragging the mattress out to the door and throwing it out onto the lawn. My heart was beating like crazy, and I was sweating as I sat on the porch. "Steve, buddy, looks like you've been replaced," I said to myself, starting to get angry again. To hell with them all. I don't need them. I used to need them, but not now, I told myself. Over the next 4 days, I made a list of what I wanted in life, where I wanted to go, and none of it included my family. It was kind of like a bucket list, but without having to die. I returned home late Friday, and Sandy was nowhere to be seen. She didn't return that night, and by Saturday afternoon, I decided to smoke some ribs and wait for her. I was almost looking forward to her explaining where she had been for the last 2 days when all hell broke loose and I had a heart attack. That's how I ended up where I am now. I finally called Ken from rehab and told him I was still alive and well. "I wasn't connected to you," he said. "How do you feel?" "Better, but still pretty weak. Looks like I'll have to stay put for a couple of months. I need Judy to bring my laptop so I can stay connected and up to date." "Do you think this is reasonable?" Ken answered. "Don't worry. I won't overwork myself, but with Judy's help I can control everything," I replied. "You know, your wife was here the other day. She took something from your table. I think it was a photo of you. Are you all right?" he asked. "As good as it gets. Have Judy get my computer, and for God's sake, don't tell anyone where I am." "I don't need any visitors right now," I told him. "By the way, I'm getting everything I can out of our health insurance," I added with a laugh. "That's what it's designed for. Just get better and let me know if you need anything, buddy." Bastards, that's what I called them 2 weeks later. First, they tried to force me into the gym, and now they are trying to feed me only pitiful leftover food. "I've seen bigger snacks," I said to myself, looking at my dinner. I exercised 4 times a day and ate 5 times a day in large portions that even a baby couldn't eat, but I was losing weight. After 5.5 weeks, I stopped being so irritable and got into a rhythm. The food was disgusting, and there was always not enough, but I liked what happened to me. I could walk on the treadmill for 30 minutes without oxygen. My pants felt looser at the waist, and for the first time in a long time, I started to feel better. "Damn it, I can do this," I told myself. When the Goodwill truck pulled into the driveway, Sandy thought they were just turning around. "Mrs. Moore?" asked the driver. "Yes, I'm Mrs. Moore. I received an order for pickup and I need to contact you," he said. "What is the order for export?" "I didn't order anything." "I know that, miss. The order was made by your husband, Steve Moore. He showed me his signature at the bottom of the page. It says here that you need to take away all the clothes in the house that belong to your husband. The note explains that they are not packaged, so if you don't mind, show us where everything is so we can get started. We have another order for today." I showed them Steve's closet and chest of drawers in our bedroom and took one of the workers downstairs where his winter clothes were stored. It took them just under an hour to pack everything up and load it into the truck. I signed their receipt and received my copy before they left. What the hell is he doing? I thought. After an argument in his room, I was banned from seeing or talking to Steve while he was in the hospital. The doctor didn't tell me how he was feeling or when he would be discharged. When Steve refused to see John or Tina, I really started to worry. I knew he was angry with me, but that was no excuse for not seeing the kids. On Tuesday, I snuck into the hospital and climbed the stairs to his floor. This nurse wasn't going to stop me this time. I waited until she had gone to the end of the corridor and then ran to Steve's room. Bursting through the door, I screamed, "Why don't you want to talk to me?" The puzzled woman looked at me and replied, "Because I don't know you," she said, trying to figure out what the hell this crazy woman was doing in her room. "Okay, where have you transferred Steve Moore?" I shouted to the nurse at the front desk. "Sorry. He left," she replied. My eyes filled with tears. "When? How?" I asked. "What did they do with his body? I'm his wife, damn it." "I have a right to know," I said, getting angry again through my tears. "When I said that he left, I meant that he checked out 2 days ago. And if you need more information, you'll have to go down to the office. So if that's all, I have a floor of sick people to take care of," she said. The office told me that Steve had been discharged and sent to a rehabilitation clinic, but they were not authorized to tell me where exactly. "Patient order," I was told. "Great, back to square one," I said to myself as I walked out the door. Sitting in the car, I planned my next actions. Steve was right. I gave up on the two of us a long time ago. His weight jumped up, and when I told him about it, he told me not to get tired. When we had sex, he was like a huge sack of potatoes lying on top of me. When I told him that he was crushing me, he got offended and tried to finish on his hands or elbows. At that moment, I was just glad that he was finally finishing and getting off me. Sex with him was no longer enjoyable, and whenever he even mentioned the word sex, my stomach turned. We did this maybe once a month, and then only after he whined for a day or two. I guess you could call it pity sex. I became increasingly frustrated, and that's when Rick showed up. I first met Rick when we joined the country club. There were dinners and dances there once a month, and he always came alone. During the evening, he danced with all the available women. As the evenings wore on, Steve would go out to drink or eat, and I would dance with Rick all night. It's been a long time since anyone held me like this. It soon became our routine to dance a few numbers and then sit and talk on the terrace until it was time to leave, or until I noticed Steve looking for me. A couple of months later, we met for lunch one Saturday when Steve was out playing golf. We had a couple glasses of wine and everything felt so right. We ended up in the back seat of his car, kissing like teenagers. We did everything we could without taking off our clothes. It's been so long since I felt so alive. We put our clothes in order, kissed goodbye, and I went home. I didn't feel guilty until I was in the shower, trying to please myself by thinking about Rick. I nagged Steve about his weight for 2 weeks, trying to explain how sexy he would look if he lost 40 pounds, but he never got the hint. He just got mad at me again. It all came crashing down when he wanted to have sex one night after dinner. It was a failure. He got angry and went to the bathroom. I felt bad, but not that bad. He slept in the guest room that night and left before I got up the next day. I had a dark brown day at work the next morning. Everything I'm about touched it. It turned to shit. I felt sorry for myself and did something stupid. I emailed Steve and basically blamed him for what happened the night before because he left me. He sent me a real revelation. "Whoever I'm deceiving, it's better to stop if I still want to stay married," it said. Damn it, could he really have known about that Saturday? However, if he had been doing things at home, this would never have happened. And anyway, we didn't have sex. It was just a little pampering, that's all. I guess I shouldn't have responded to his letter when I was angry because I called him every name I could think of. I told him that I never cheated on him, and if he weren't so fat and unkempt, we would have had more sex. I realize now that I mostly pushed him away, and I think he got tired of arguing. That's when he responded that maybe he should stay in the guest room forever if I didn't want him anymore. Now it was all getting out of control. When Steve got home, we had a huge fight. We threw accusations at each other, and he went one way and I went the other. I slept alone that night and many, many nights after that. On the evening of the charity auction, we finally apologized to each other. It tore me up inside, but I think we were both too stubborn to admit we were wrong or understand what the real problem was. We had a wonderful dinner. Steve danced with me and then decided to hang out with his friends. I made the mistake of dancing with Rick. We danced, perhaps a little too close, and on the terrace he said he wanted to take it to the next level, and then kissed me. I told him it was a mistake and that I would never cheat on my husband and left him to lick his wounds. I didn't see Steve leave, and neither did anyone else. The parking attendant told me he left about half an hour ago, and when I called him, the call went straight to voicemail. I was angry and drank too much before realizing that I had to somehow get home. Rick came over and asked what happened. Steve got angry for some reason and left. He's not answering his phone, and I need to get home somehow. Sandy, I'll give you a ride home after the auction, he said. I looked at him. And I will keep my hands to myself, he assured me. I drank throughout the auction before we left. On the way home, I started to get angry again. How could he just leave me there? I was seething. I think Rick noticed how angry I was and told me to relax. When he parked by the lake, I was surprised, and when he reached out to kiss me, I didn't stop him. The only reason we didn't make closer contact that night was because a patrol car doing its rounds shined its spotlight on our car. I immediately sobered up. Rick, take me home, now, I demanded. When I got home, I thanked him and ran into the house. I almost sobered up, but again I was angry as hell. When Steve accused me of cheating, I exploded. What cut me to the core was when he asked when I gave up in our marriage. I collapsed inside and started crying, telling him that I never cheated on him, but he didn't believe me anymore. Steve didn't leave his room on Sunday, and I didn't insist. I thought we'd talk on Monday and wanted to make sure I had everything ready. When he didn't come home on Monday night, I thought it was his way of punishing me. When he didn't return on Tuesday, I called his secretary Judy, and she said he was taking a couple of days off. The bastard is offended somewhere, I said to myself. Well, two can play this game. On Wednesday, I went to visit our daughter at college for a couple of days. We had a great time, bonded, and even had a bachelorette party with her friends on Friday night. Saturday morning, I woke up with a hangover and an upset stomach. I think I'm too old for parties like this, I said, getting dressed. I said goodbye to my daughter, thanked her for the good time, and went home. I had just gotten out of the car when my neighbor ran towards me. Steve was taken by ambulance to the hospital this morning, she told me. The front door was closed, but the lock was broken. I ran inside and saw that some things had been moved and smelled a smokehouse on the terrace. The charcoal was almost out, but there were 2 pieces of meat on the grill. I took them off, put them in the refrigerator, and opened the telephone directory. There were only 2 hospitals in our area. I called Mercy General and was right on target. Steve was accepted, but nothing was said over the phone. I changed clothes and went there. Triple bypass, I almost screamed. How long will the operation last? About an hour, they told me. You have no choice but to wait. He has a great doctor, and we caught him in time. After the operation, he will move to the post-operative department, and from there, he will be transferred to the ward. If you wait in the waiting room, I'll come to you when it's over. Can you call me an idiot? Because that's exactly how I felt. He could have died, I repeated over and over. When I bring him home, I'll show him how much I love him. We'll get through this together. But I wasn't given that chance. I finally found out that he had been transferred to a rehabilitation clinic, but he still refused to see me. I was starting to get angry. Stubbornness is one thing, but Steve took it to the extreme. He must have somehow found out what happened to Rick. I had no idea how, but someone must have seen us and told him. I just needed to explain to him that nothing really happened, but he avoided me like the plague. Ken and Judy weren't helping, but when I found out he had a laptop, I sent him an email, although not the same as last time. Steve, I love and miss you, darling, and I don't understand why you don't want to see me. I know we've had problems lately, and we've both said things in anger, but I love you, and I still believe that you love me. Please give me a chance to explain everything you think I did or didn't do. Steve, I need you, and I want to grow old and gray with you. If you don't want to see me, at least talk to me. Children also don't understand why you don't want to see them. They came to the hospital, and when the nurse wouldn't let them into your room, John got really angry. Please write to them because they are very worried about you two. Your loving wife. I was emailing a seller who had lost a large order due to his stupidity when Sandy's email appeared. I finished trashing the seller, telling him that if this happened again, he would end up on the street. Then I returned to the letter from Sandy. I read it 3 times before answering. Dear Sandy, let's get down to business. You haven't been my loving wife for over a year. It's true that I've gained a lot of weight, but when you became as huge as you were while pregnant with John, did I humiliate you? Cut off communication. Thin or fat, I am still the same person you married many years ago. Don't try to fool me now when I'm on sick leave. You're no longer interested in going to bed with me. You made that clear the last time we were together. From what I saw and learned, I was replaced by Rick or someone else. I found your love nest. You could at least be respectful and change the sheets and throw out the trash. I threw away the mattress and empty wine bottles. But you are right about one thing. We will both grow old and gray. But we won't be doing this together. Your future ex-husband. This should shut her up, I told myself as I pressed the send button. I made a list of all my assets. Sandy was going to get 50% of everything she knew about. What she didn't know, I wanted to keep secret. Ken said that if he was asked in court, he would have to disclose that I was a partner, but if they just wanted to check my salary, he would only provide that information. The cabin was mine, a gift from my parents, and we could keep the cars we drove to make things easier. I think everything else will be put into one big pot, and everyone will get half. I was pleased with this. What love nest? Was Sandy's answer. I don't have the slightest idea what you're talking about. Our bedroom is the only love nest I know. If you accuse me of something, at least be polite and accuse me directly rather than play these childish games. I assumed that this method of communication was as good as any other and answered her. How stupid do you think I am? I went to the cabin and found all the evidence. I wish I had been there a week before my heart attack. Did you spend Friday and Saturday with him, or did he rent a hotel room this time? I thought this would shut her up, but no more than 10 minutes passed before I received her answer. Damn, that was more communication than I had had in the last 4 months. Call your daughter and ask Tina, who spent time with her from Wednesday to Saturday morning, after you so kindly disappeared on Monday without saying a word to me. And just for your information, I haven't been in the cockpit since the last time you and I were there, about 4 or 5 months ago. So if that's all you have, that's pretty pathetic. Maybe I'm wrong. Regardless, the last 2 years of our marriage have been a real disappointment. John, this is Dad. That's how I started the conversation with my son. Yes, I'm fine and feeling pretty good, and no, I don't want to discuss your mother right now, I said. Now it's time to bluff. I know you're cheating on Cindy, and I want it to stop before I call her and tell her you're a piece of shit. Dad, I don't know what you're talking about, John replied. John, I was in the cabin, and our neighbors said they saw you too when you got there. You haven't even changed the damn sheets, bastard. What do you think Cindy will say when I call her? If she doesn't shoot you, her brothers will probably come see you, I said, still in the process of extracting information. It was only one time, Dad, believe me. This is not an affair, it was just one time, and she no longer works for the company, I heard his voice pleading. I will say this once and only once. If I ever hear that you are cheating on her, or even think that you are looking at another woman, I will call Cindy in a heartbeat. From now on, she should be the happiest and most prosperous wife on earth, if you know what I'm talking about. Get your head out of your ass and grow up, damn it. I will, Dad. You can count on it. Just don't call Cindy, he begged. Okay, son, I have to go. Remember what I told you, I warned him before hanging up. Well, that was interesting, I said to myself, contemplating my next steps, and wrote my last letter to Sandy. Well, it looks like you didn't sleep with someone in the cabin. It turns out it was our stupid son. However, that doesn't explain your behavior with Rick and anyone else. I think before that night I still loved you, but not anymore. I think you still love me, but you stopped being in love with me a long time ago, I'm sorry to say. And I can't live like this anymore. Life is too short. I learned this in a very painful way. So I ended it. I was as guilty as Sandy. We knew we were growing apart and did nothing to stop it. Between her job, kids, and social calendar, there was no time for us. And I, trying to conquer the business world on my own, was no better. The only difference was that Sandy looked as good as when I first met her, and I looked like someone from Slobs R Us magazine, but not anymore. I spent the next 3 months doing nothing but exercise and eating right. The first 35 pounds went quickly, but then I hit the first of many plateaus. I never gave up. Now I was determined to get back what I had lost years ago. My waistline and, most importantly, my life. Sandy and I exchanged emails every week to keep each other updated on what was going on in our lives, but we never saw each other. After 6 months, I expected to receive divorce papers, but they never arrived. Our letters were mostly about how we felt about each other and our breakup, the problems each of us saw in our marriage, and why we didn't do anything to solve them. As I said earlier, we were both at fault. Thanksgiving sucked. The kids split their time between us. Her dinner and my dessert. John announced that Cindy was pregnant, and Tina said that she had finally received her degree or would have it by the end of the semester. I laughed and said, I'll believe it when I see it. They tried to get information out of me, but I told them it was none of their business. Tina was a little offended, but backed down when I said, enough, enough. Our holiday emails took a new direction, but I still can't say how it happened. They became more intimate and emotional. One night Sandy asked if I remembered our first night, how her roommate and parents caught us. I corrected her, saying that this case did not count because we never had time to complete the case. It wasn't until 2 weeks after that that we finally did it, and so on. We reminisced about our moments together for almost a month. For Christmas, I sent her a pair of emerald earrings. I knew she didn't have a match because she gave hers to Tina on her 21st birthday. I just included a little note, to replace the ones you gave away. Sandy didn't send me anything for Christmas, but I guess I didn't expect that. As New Year's approached, Ken approached me with a problem. Steve, my wife's sister, is coming to town, and Carrie wants to take her to a New Year's party at the country club. Her sister doesn't want to go alone, and Carrie refuses to leave her home alone. Can you be a friend and become her boyfriend for the new year? Come on, Steve, I'll really appreciate it. He must have begged me for a week before I finally gave in. Damn it, I didn't care if I was going to sit in front of the TV. Then I realized it was a formal event, and I no longer had a tuxedo. It took me visiting 3 stores and paying a huge bribe to get a tuxedo and have it fit in less than a week. Wait until Ken sees my December expense report, I said with a laugh. John and his wife invited me to New Year's, but I told them I had other plans. Do you have a date? He asked. No, I'm accompanying the sister of my boss's wife, I answered. You don't have to lie to me. I won't tell Mom, he replied. I'm not lying, and your mom will probably have a date for New Year's too, so let's just leave it at that, I said, slightly annoyed. This was one of the things Sandy and I hadn't discussed for the past 9 months. Whether we were dating someone. I've had a few business lunches, but that's it. I wasn't sure about Sandy. A beautiful woman like her certainly had many admirers. We were still married, but only in name. I think we'll need to discuss this after the new year, I told myself. I was at Ken's house by 7 o'clock. He let me in and I met Sue, Carrie's sister. She was about 45 and very attractive. I suggested going in one car, but Ken insisted on 2. Listen, after the dance you can go home, and I'll take both women, unless you're planning on trying to romance Sue, he said, nudging me while Carrie told him to act according to his age, not his ick. The place was packed, and there wasn't a single seat available. I knew most of the people at our table, and they were surprised at how good I looked. Wow, Steve, how much weight have you lost? About 80 pounds, I replied. Damn it, if I didn't know you so well, I wouldn't recognize you, said one of them. Dinner was decent, with a choice of steak and chicken, plus vegetables and rice. I ate about half. There was no point in breaking my diet tonight. I had one glass of wine and slowly drank the second, getting reacquainted with people I hadn't seen for the past 9 months. After dessert, the lights were dimmed and the music began. Sue said she wasn't a very good dancer, and I wasn't either, so after a few songs I excused myself and wandered around the room. And then I saw her. She was incredibly beautiful, about 5'8", with brown hair and a figure to admire. She wore a blue strapless dress that hugged her every curve. I watched her for the next half hour as she did some quick dances with 3 older gentlemen. Every time a slow song started, she returned to her table and sat down. Despite the invitations, she did not slow dance with anyone. I gave one of the musicians $100 and asked him to play 2 slow songs in a row, the first of which should be, "You Look Lovely Tonight." The second could be any slow. As soon as the orchestra started playing, I walked up behind this angelic woman and asked her to dance. "Sorry, I only slow danced with my husband." She began to speak without looking at me. "Well then, I think there won't be any problems," I said, taking her hand. She turned and started to say something when she screamed, "Steve!" itself. "Now about the dance," I said, pulling Sandy onto the dance floor. "Steve, she began. "Don't talk, just dance with me," I said, hugging her tightly as I moved across the dance floor. I didn't let her go when the second song started. I felt her back and waist, and when the orchestra started playing Nights in White Satin, I held her even tighter. "Looks like someone missed me," Sandy whispered in my ear. She was right, I did miss her, but I had no intention of going back to the life I left behind. When the song ended, I didn't want to let it go, and I didn't. "I think we should talk one day," I began, still holding her hand. "Why not now? Do you think your date might be a little jealous?" I answered. "Which satellite?" "I came with John and Cindy," she said, pointing at them on the dance floor as John smiled at me. "I'll be back in a second," I said, walking back to my desk. "You set this all up, didn't you?" I asked Ken. "No, John, Tina, and I set this up for you and Sandy," he said with a smile. "Damn it, Sue didn't even want to go. I had to bribe her to agree to come, so be a good boy and get out of here. I'll see you next week." John and Cindy had already returned to the table when I walked back. "Do you think you are so smart?" I asked, looking at him and Sandy. "I had no idea what they were planning," Sandy said, her eyes begging me to believe her. "Dad, I didn't say where we would be. I just asked if you wanted to spend the new year with us." Cindy interrupted us. "Listen, you need to talk, and John and I need to leave." "I can't drink. I've eaten my fill, and I'm already walking around the dance floor like a duck in my position," she said, stroking her belly. "So if you don't mind, we'll leave." I had a million things I wanted to say, but Sandy started talking as fast as she could. "You look so good, Steve. How much weight have you lost? Where do you live? Did I lose track of you when you moved out of rehab? Are you dating someone? Are you with someone special?" And so on, and so on, and so on. It seemed like she was trying to ask all her questions in the first 5 minutes, because I think she was afraid she wouldn't get another chance. "Let's get out of here and go somewhere where we can talk," I said, taking her coat and leading her to the car. "Where are we going?" "You'll see," I answered. We drove in silence for the first 5 minutes, both almost afraid to say something that might ruin the mood. "I'm not dating, and I haven't been in bed with anyone, if you're wondering," Sandy said without looking at me. "And I never went to bed with Rick or anyone else, no matter what they told you." "I know," I answered, looking at the road. "What do you mean, you know? You accused me of treason." "I know that, and if I had proof that you slept with someone, we wouldn't be in this car right now," I said. Now she was silent and deep in thought. It was around midnight when I pulled into the driveway of our lake house. I left the headlights on as I opened the door and walked back to the car to see Sandy out. Once inside, I lit the gas fireplace and opened a bottle of our favorite wine, pouring us a glass. "This is how it all began and ended 9 months ago," I said, handing her a glass. "No, not like this. It all started much earlier. It just came to a head that night, she said. You have no idea how many nights I lay awake thinking how much you must hate me for the things I said and did, and how if you gave me another chance, I would make everything right, Sandy said, starting to cry. I pulled her towards me and kissed her salty lips. Our glasses of wine were not drunk for quite some time after this. Our clothes were scattered all over the living room, on the kitchen table, and the rest of them lay in a heap on the bedroom floor as we fell naked onto the bed. It's been a long time for both of us. I was excited almost from the first kiss. I think this is called starting the new year in a big way, I told her. I went to the kitchen and grabbed our wine glasses and bottle. This conversation will take some time, I said, returning to the bed. With glasses in hand, we raised a toast to a new and, hopefully, better year. I know we have a lot to discuss, but I want to say again how sorry I am, and that. I stopped her. You're sorry. I'm sorry. The children are sorry. Everyone is sorry, but it doesn't change anything. We must change. You and I both need to change the way we think about what's left of our marriage. I'm not going back to what I left. I'd rather get a divorce and start over, I told her. I don't want a divorce, Sandy said, starting to cry. Listen to what I'm saying. I don't want a divorce either, but I'm not going back to the life I lived before all this crap, I explained to her. The house has to go, and you can move into the apartment I'm renting now. We can decide later where we want to live. This house just brings back too many bad memories for me. But this is our home, and I'm your husband. It should be obvious to you what to choose. We will sell the house, take the furniture we need, and either donate the rest or give it to the children. I don't want to spend money, maintain, or be responsible for a big house. We only need a 2-room apartment. I want to travel and see everything I've been putting off all these years. I was given a second chance, and I'm not going to waste it, I told her. But you and I have obligations and responsibilities. To hell with them all, I told her. I'll work and give 100% when I'm there, but that's it. No more weekends, business trips, or damn golf tournaments. I want my life back. I want to have fun and feel excited about something new. And if I want to make love in the morning, noon, and evening, I don't want my wife to tell me that she is not in the mood. Not more. Steve, I don't know if I can do all this, Sandy replied. Well, then you have a choice, but make it quickly. The train is leaving, and you are either on it or not. A warm breeze caressed my face as we rode the motorcycle towards our third destination. I had never seen a vineyard and decided to spend a week visiting several of them, staying overnight in each. We left immediately after breakfast, and despite making short stops for sightseeing, we still arrived early in the afternoon and had plenty of time for the tour. It's been a million years since I rode a motorcycle, and back then it was just a Honda 250cc. The Harley we rented was about 1,350cc and weighed over 1,200 pounds. Who cares? But it handled like a dream, and for the first time in a long time, I felt happy and free, feeling her arms around me. We arrived, checked in, and headed to our cottage. I'm glad I went, she said, kissing me at the door. I'm glad you went too. I think we have just enough time to unpack before the tour starts, I said, throwing our bags onto one of the beds. Taking off her jacket and then her shirt, she stood with her hands on her hips. You have a choice. We can go on a tour, or I can lead my own tour, she said with a sly look. I closed and locked the door. Her excursion was much more fun and useful. We took a shower, and while getting dressed for dinner, I pulled her towards me and ate it. Any regrets? I asked. No, Carol answered. So let's move. I am starving. That's right, Carol. You see, Sandy missed her chance. Steve, we're not kids anymore. We can't just drop everything and start over. Sandy said that night at the lake house, trying to convince me. Let's give it 6 months and talk about it again. Fine. The divorce took only 3 months. Even though everyone thought I was crazy, I moved on. The children took her side, which is not surprising, and Sandy decided to leave the house. We split almost everything in half, since Ken only gave the court information about my annual salary. I haven't seen or spoken to Sandy since we got divorced. I hope she's doing well. I met Carol at a 5K race one Saturday morning. We both took first place in our age categories, and after that we started running together in the evenings. After a long run, one Sunday morning we showered together and had wild sex for 2 hours. This was 8 months ago. She is 6 years younger than me, but calls me her wild child. Her only question is, will you ever grow up? God, I hope not. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click to the next one.